All right.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to Soul Purpose Leaders. And today I've got another leader coming up today, and I'm just excited. I'm excited, buzzing with excitement, and just can't wait because before I go any further, all we're here and what we're doing is showcasing other leaders on what they're doing in their lives and actually make it visible all over the world. Now, I don't want you to be shy or to worry about, oh my goodness, is there someone gonna be like who I want? I'm having different types of people because to ensure that is variety, but also is a place that anyone can find anyone that they can actually be or they can actually empowered and get something that they need in their lives. Now, before I go any further, today we have an amazing Caroline Hammond. She's an amazing woman, okay? The 2020 Boston Scientific Global Volunteer Award winner. Caroline has spent 30 years as a result-driven sales and training professional, promoting billion-dollar brand for Fortune 500 companies. Wow. Thriving within human resources, training and development, Caroline served as a founder and a CEO of Safe in Harm's Way, built by abuse survivors for survivors. That's beautiful. Safe in Harm's Way is an online bridge for survivors, giving a voice to the truth and connect resources to live paper. Can you say that?
Sure. No, I appreciate this. Perpetrators. Yeah.
Perpetrators, yes. Plus, thrive in the after Safe in Harm's Way founding pillar is inclusive of the unique perspective needed by people of color, men, LGBTQ community, and abuse survivors. As a survivor of domestic violence, plus a revival from a death experience, Caroline uses storytelling to evoke change and has been featured on national and regional television and media broadcasts as a thought leader in the domestic violence and overcoming diversity arenas. Sorry. Guys, I'm not the best reader, but I hope you got that. And
You did great. You did great.
And I want her to tell us in full because there's a lot of things that she overcame, but also there's a lot of things that she's been doing all this time. And I can't wait to share with you. So welcome, Caroline. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it. I appreciate that we can work across countries, across time zones. You're in London. I'm here in the middle of the United States. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about overcome adversity. And I love what you said about bringing together all different storytelling, all different people's experiences, because you never know what story is going to resonate with someone, and that person can then go on and take that knowledge and that experience, apply it to themselves, and positively impact their own world and the world of everybody they touch. So thank you so much for having me on today. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I am so happy and grateful that you're here today. Now, there's a lot you've been doing in your life. Now, if we go back to, let's say, when you are 16 years old, okay, you're a teenager, and hopefully you're in school at the time. What were you thinking of your future at the time?
You know, that's a great question. I had somebody ask that a similar question to me this week. So, looking back at my 16-year-old self and what did I anticipate my life to be? None of this. There wasn't anything in the world that would have imagined that I was doing what I'm doing now and that I get to work in the arena that I get to work in, both personally and what my passion work is. And to me, that's a tiny little miracle, or I should say a series of tiny little miracles, right? Because there's no reason today that you and I should be talking. None. My 16-year-old girl self could never have imagined the connections made in my life. And I'm so full of gratitude that I've been able to make them. And back in the day, to get very specific, I was a little boy crazy. So, my thought was, oh, okay. So, what's the next boyfriend? What's going on there? And it was just, I really didn't even plan to go to college. I now have 2 master's degrees. I didn't plan to, have children right away. I have kids who are 28 years old. So anything that I planned in my little 16-year-old mind was the exact far opposite of anything that occurred in my life.
Thank you so much because there are people who are like you that who maybe who 16 years old now and they are actually in the same where you are and then
Mhm.
they're not thinking or they're not really worried about this will happen. That's it. This is why I asked this question because it's actually going to help. What was the first thing that came for you to choose your um, what you want to do in your life?
It was a series of people guiding me along my way in my career. And so if I could speak to my 16-year-old self or to the 16-year-olds out there now, that piece of your world, which seems very small or possibly limiting, is actually the opportunity that you can dream the biggest, boldest life and go on to achieve that. And so you can, even if you're feeling sad, even if you're feeling as if you don't know what your direction is, you all you have to do is engage with the people around you. Can you help me? And that's what's carried me through every point in my life. I think this big worldly pause has really forced me to self assess and to say, how did I get here? And find gratitude along the way with the people who got me here. So, for my 16-year-old self, I was very fortunate that my dad always tried to align me with the smart people he knew to say, learn from them. Exactly what you're doing now. You're aligning people with others to say, learn from them. Excuse me. My dad would get me meetings with CEOs of health systems. He would get me meetings because he was so connected with his community, our community, and put me in front of people and say, ask them questions, ask them what they do, have them tell you about their life. And at the time, my 16-year-old self was more probably annoyed that he was doing these than I realized. But what that did, and what I try to do for my own children now, is align them with smart people that they can learn from. I want the fabulous people in my world to know my children and my children to know them so that they can learn from people and connect with them and then have those people usher them along the way. Because you don't know what you don't know at 16 years old, right? So you have to be able to learn from the smartest people in the room. And that's that's a huge thing I think that you're providing, and I'm happy to be part of today.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's so true because at that time, actually, your brain is like, it's absorbing. It's like, you just and without realizing that will affect or that will actually give back later on in the future.
Right.
Now, what made you choose HR?
I got into it was more by accident. I did a lot of work when I was around in my early 20s, and I sold accounting products to colleges and universities. So I would travel all over the Midwest, and I would get on campus, talk to accounting professors, help people study for the CPA exam. And an extension of that was to build a team of students on each campus that then were act as our advocates when we weren't around. So I had to hire and train student leaders, find who they were, find the best and brightest in a class, excuse me, put them into our world, and and usher them along the way. And so as I started to do that, I realized I had a talent for it. And that sales career continued. But what also happened in the process was the great opportunity to train and lead sales professionals and then also put them into the right careers. So it was this natural evolution that sprung up from sales and then continued in conjunction with sales to bring people together in their best spot for human resources.
Wow, that's me. And oh my goodness, guys, sales and in training. So if you think that, oh my goodness, I'm not great at selling, you should get in contact with this lady. She's one of the best. Tell us a bit of the award that you got, okay, for the 2020 Boston Scientific Global Volunteer. Tell us a bit about that.
You know, that winning the Boston Scientific Volunteer of the Year award was a career highlight and a life highlight. It really looked at, there were over 100 nominations from 24 different countries across the globe, and my work at Safe in Harm's Way is what was honored. So taking, as you said, Safe in Harm's Way is built by survivors. I am a survivor of domestic violence, for survivors. And so it really acknowledged the work that I had done. That work led me not only, you know, nationally within the U.S., but globally. I've been to Africa to help train people who've been through significant abuse, and how do you become a leader after that? How do you find your worth after that? So those kinds of moments, we're developing training now about being psychologically safe within the workplace. How do you help somebody who's come to you in the workplace with a life-altering situation, and what do you do? Because your actions in relation to that person help chart their next step. And if we are not allowing people to be psychologically safe within their workplaces, then what we're doing is also negatively impacting their life at home. And those two intersect. Within human resources, unless you have that caveat in your head at all times, what is going on in a person's life at home directly affects their ability to work, which directly affects a company's ability to engage, a company's ability to retain quality employees, and a company's ability to positively increase their bottom line. Because if you're constantly chasing new hires and all the funds needed to do that, you really are not putting the money toward where you can increase profits. So that's a hand-in-hand component of what we do at Safe in Harm's Way, is to allow corporations to be psychologically safe. We have a partnership with Very Safe in New Zealand, and we are working on the psychologically safe environment. We're working on, our next big initiative is working within the field of human sex trafficking, because domestic violence is one of the highest risk factors for that. So we're also building training around that to enable employers, especially if you have a trucking company, especially if you have a fleet company. Let's say you own a massive fleet of trucks that deliver propane. You have a sales force that is always usually in their cars on the road. If you train folks around the patterns and the next steps and how to keep people safe and how to report, you all of a sudden have 1 million eyes on the road watching for signs of human sex trafficking. And when, at least in the US, the biggest producer of child rape videos and the biggest consumer of child rape videos is the United States of America. And if we can take those organizations that have fleets on the road, give them the tools to enable them to know what to look for, then all of a sudden we've got many more people keeping eyes on that. So we're looking at that. And the final thing we do is we look at who are the perpetrators within any organization using company funds in order to issue abuse. So are they using their company credit card to secure sex or drugs online? Are they using their company cell phone to arrange to abuse another person? That again affects the company's bottom line. And statistics say that these issues, at least as it relates to domestic violence and perpetrators within their own organizations or the women and men they employ who are being abused, is at a very minimum an $8 billion problem for employers. So we intend to stop that, and all that effort was put forth into this award. And my goodness, it proudly sits on my mantle, and it's a reflection, I think, back to my dad and what my dad taught me. And it's honored by him on my counter with his picture. He passed away in March, and it's his evolution of teaching me how to connect with people that brought us all of the connections that we needed to facilitate that kind of training and that kind of assistance for survivors. And so it's as much an honor to him as it is to me. And today, well, actually tomorrow is his birthday, so it's kind of nice to be talking about him today.
Oh, happy birthday to him.
Yes.
And what an amazing man he is. And wow, what an inspiration you are to every woman and every person, every man out there who are going through abuse, or they went through abuse, and to actually be the voice for them. And especially with the trafficking, human trafficking and sexual trafficking, is all sad things, but it does happen. And this is why having this knowledge and actually helping other people is very important, and we need to have that. And I'm applauding you to actually be doing this and to be open for people to and companies to teach them, because we all need to learn, and we're not going to go further if we're ignorant of these things. So thank you so much, Caroline, and keep the good work going. And
Thank you.
I would like us to actually go backwards now. You yourself, you went through abuse. Would you be able to tell us like when it started? How did you know that you are in an abusive relationship?
I'm honored that you asked that question, Barke, because here is the biggest takeaway that I think people can learn from, because it is across the board. If the majority of what you get when you talk to a survivor is, I had zero idea. Because abuse doesn't start off as abuse. If you would go out on a date with somebody and they clocked you across the face, you probably wouldn't go on a second date with them. But if you go on a date with someone and they treat you to a fabulous dinner and flowers and wine and you're beautiful and oh my gosh, you make me feel better than anyone has ever made me feel in my life. And that kind of attention is repeated for 6 months to a year, maybe longer, and that's all you know of this relationship, why would you not buy in? Why would you not authentically choose to love that person who's giving you all these, making you feel all the right feels when you should fall in love? But what begins to happen with abusers? It's a very calculated, very systemic, across the board pattern that all of a sudden that beauty starts to get chipped away at. And what a person in that relationship experiences, and I'll speak for myself, and I tend in these cases to use the female pronouns, and I realize that men can be abused, and I realize that specifically the LGBTQ community is at risk of these same types of abuse, but I use the feminine pronoun because I'll talk about me specifically. When you start to chase that first 6 months to a year, that's all you're doing. And when you're smart and when you are somebody who invests authentically, you start to realize, well, and because you're told it, this is my fault. Abusers say, I wouldn't act like this except for what you do. And you're left thinking, what did I do? What did I do to start to deserve this? And for someone who is good in other areas of their life, maybe they've got great relationships, maybe they're really excelling at their own work, or maybe they grew up being told they weren't good enough. All of those things start to play on the psyche of the person. For me, I just kept thinking, well, he's my toughest customer. I have great relationships with people. If this is going badly, it's because I need to do better. I need to love him more. I need to show him by example of how I treat my kids, that if he treated his kids better, he wouldn't be having knockdown, drag out fights and leaving them in parking lots. If I just folded the towels better, he wouldn't come home screaming and dump them on the floor. It starts to be, if I just do better, he will stop this. And that was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. In fact, it was only going to get worse. And it did get worse. And so when you ask the question of when did I realize I was abused, after I left, to be honest, because I was so busy, even in the physicality of the abuse, I was so busy trying to be better and because it had become my normal, and because with the slights and the little digs, I can share an example, right? My birthday party, and there's a bunch of people there, and he gives me 2 shirts from my favorite band, and he says in front of everybody, well, I doubt these will ever fit you because you've just gained so much weight, in front of everybody. And let me add, at the time I weighed 114 pounds. But when you are just consistently put down, you start to believe that, right? And so when I went to him and I said, that wasn't cool. Like, what you just did on my birthday in front of people was really hurtful. And he would say, I didn't say that at all. I didn't say it. You misunderstood me. And that's gaslighting, which happens a lot in abuse. And this is all you. If you just weren't so sensitive about things, then that kind of stuff wouldn't bother you. Like, you did this at my birthday party in front of people, right? So that further makes you doubt yourself. It further makes you look at the world and think, okay, it's just me. I have to do better. I have to not be so sensitive. I have to, all these things. And so, and one of the things I would love to give you for you to put out into your content and your membership is the Wheel of Power and Abuse that has to do with domestic violence. Because when I was using the services of the shelter after I escaped from him, and they handed me this Wheel of Power and Abuse, and I was reading it, and I thought, this has been my life. This has been my life for 8 years. For 8 years, here's the financial abuse. Here's the things that I thought were normal verbally and emotionally that weren't. So my goal in talking about my story is for people who are in a relationship that makes you feel bad, that even if you can't label it, even if you don't know why you feel bad, but you know that you are worried when he comes home from work because you don't know what life is going to be like. You're worried that when you go out to eat, he's going to make a scene and treat the waiter horrifically. He's going to treat the cab driver, the Uber driver horribly. You can't you know it's bad, but if that feeling inside of you makes you feel bad, that is not a healthy relationship. That's not what they're built on. And so then you have to act. Then you have to start saying to yourself, what can I do differently? And know deep in your soul that, first of all, you're worthy of your emotions. You are worthy of how you feel. Secondly, if somebody is not treating you in a way that you want to be treated, you have the ability to walk away. We use that as a way for people to kind of get their mind and their arms wrapped around it. Because folks don't want to say, well, I don't want to cut somebody off. I'm a good person, and if I cut somebody off, if I just loved him a little more, he'd change. What we say for that is something my nephew said at 4 years old. He's 16 now, and he said, Aunt Carolyn, I really love dogs. I love dogs. I love dogs best when they are through a window and very far away. So isn't that awesome? Like, if you really are having a hard time removing yourself from a situation that makes you sad, go ahead and love them. But love them through a window and very far away. They don't have to be in your life. They can be in someone else's life. They can do their own life. But they don't have to continue to be around you and make you feel bad. And that seems to be a nice way for people to be able to put a boundary in place that establishes their own safety and their own feeling good, and allows that other person to be through a window and very far away.
Sometimes it's very hard for people to walk away because I've had this more than once. It's like they give me this one example of it's better to stay with the devil you know than the devil you don't know. I don't know if you heard of that.
Yes.
And tell us when a person is going through all this and they're still thinking that this person will change, I just need to give him time. I need to make sure, because there's no one else who I know more than this person, and right. I know they can be better. So tell us a bit about that. When someone comes as a coach and as a speaker and as a mentor, I get to the point that I cannot help them because I feel that there's no limit for them because this person done so much
Mm-hmm.
that I don't see them walking away. What would you say to this person?
That's, statistically, we know that if someone is trying to leave an abusive relationship, there's a couple things that happen. One of the things that happens is it is the most dangerous time in their life. If you're leaving an abusive situation, the most dangerous time of your life is the first 3 months when you escape that abuse. And that in itself is scary and makes people stay. That in itself is something that is troublesome. And you know what? I'm going to pause 1 second because I can hear the mowers coming up on the side. Give me 1 second.
That's fine. Just waiting for Caroline to come back, and then now we're going to continue.
Sorry about that. We've got
She's back.
it's all the beauty of technology and being live is really awesome. The beauty of technology and being live is the lawn guy can show up to do your lawn, and it gets really loud right outside your door. So that back to the topic, when you can decide to leave, that's the most dangerous time for people, those 3 months. And we also know that statistically, people try to leave about 7 times on average before they actually get to. And it is exactly why you said, you know what you're dealing with. You know the devil you're dealing with. Financially, that person could have ruined you, and you don't have the resources to leave. I've been in court and seen instances where women chose to stay because, and this is heartbreaking to me, it is easier to be in that abusive relationship and take a beating than it is to drop your children off unsupervised with the person issuing abuse. At least if you're there, you can offer a buffer of protection to keep your children from potentially being abused. So that's when, I 2 things I like to talk about, because we also talk to families at Safe in Harm's Way. We talk to families of people their members are living with abuse and have maybe gone back for the 3rd or 4th time. And the family member is, I'm done. I can't do anything more with that person. I've told her everything she can do. If this is the choice she's going to make, I'm out. No, double down on the love. Double down on the love. Because the person that you love that is returning to an abusive situation has been dismantled from the inside out and doesn't have the resources or the ability to comprehend what her life is going to be like if she leaves. And if you as a family member dismiss that person, then you have also taken away one of her biggest sources of potential support. So double down on the love. You can give resources. And one of the things we do at Safe in Harm's Way is we'll put out content. We'll put out content that seems relatively benign because it's inspirational, or it's just a fun meme, or it talks about health, it talks about healing, how to eat right. But in the contents of the comments are all the resources someone would need. So we have the wheel of power of control, because if someone's in that relationship, I don't want them to wait till after they've escaped to know what they were living. If you need to text somebody to get resources out, here's the text. If you need to search something, because we don't want people to have to search, because you can't even begin to comprehend what you need to search for in those situations. So we offer those kinds of resources. And that's the other thing is, the big thing that I don't think people realize is you do not have to live at a shelter for survivors of domestic violence in order to take advantage of their services. So if you are in a relationship, and even if you can't name it, if you contact one of your local shelters, and we partner with domesticshelters.org, they do it better than everybody else. Anybody else I've seen. We were in the process of creating this huge platform for this very thing, and turns out domesticshelters.org does it all day long beautifully. You plug in your zip code, and it tells you exactly where all the resources are in your area. You can call any one of those resources and say, I don't know how to label it, but here's what's happening in my life. What can I do? And they can tell you what to do. And there are Facebook groups that you can join that gives you a community to share your stories. There are there's YouTube videos. I mean, heck, you can go on your YouTube channel and watch. You can put in anything to do searches and find the resources you need. And that was eye-opening to me as a survivor when I would stumble upon things and I would think, well, surely this was just created, because had I known about it, I would have used it to escape sooner. I didn't have the tools and the words and I didn't speak the language soon enough to know what it was. And turns out this content is old. I could have used it back when I was living with my abuser. I didn't know about it. So to give to people that they don't have to search, and we use a hashtag because you never know, then that way everybody's putting out content and you're sharing the Safe in Harm's Way content. And then somebody organically finds it on your news feed on social media, or you talk about it, and then you're giving a lifeline to someone you might never know what they're dealing with at home. So those kinds of resources, just to build a community for someone who's trying to escape, and love them, double down on loving them during that process, so that they have the courage and they have the confidence to know that they can create a life that evolves after abuse.
Another question I want to also dig in about now, for a person who's going through this abuse, they say to themselves that, oh no, it's me, it's my fault, I started it. I actually, I asked the question and I pushed and pushed, and this is why I got what I got. So it's my fault, I got what I deserve. How would you answer to the person like this?
Great question. In answering those things that when a survivor starts to question themselves and blame themselves, because this is, I'm just doing it wrong. I in those conversations, I dig down into what happened before. What made you feel like, what was the evolution of this particular instance? Let's talk about one instance, because when you start talking about one, pretty soon you get into 27 instances, right? What was going on? And can you see how that was not your fault? Because when you've been told that it is your fault, you do believe it, right? Because this person claims to love me. This person tells me how wonderful I am. This person then cries after they've hurt me. This person just begs for forgiveness after they've been cruel and mean and issued abuse. And so they love me, right? Because they cry. They're really sorry and sad about how they're treating me. So it must really be me, because this person claims to love me. And I can give you an example of what that looked like in my world. I remember often my abuser would come home from work and I'd say, hey, how was your day? Tell me about your day. I didn't hear from you a lot. Not accusatory, just saying, I didn't hear from you. How was your day? Must have been busy. God damn it, Carolyn. Let's get out my phone and see how often I text you. Like, you do this all the time. I come home from work and you ask me how my day is? Why? Did you see where, can you see that progress? And all of a sudden I'm defending myself because I love you. So I'm asking how your day was. And then when he puts into it, well, you just do this all the time. Yeah. You're struggling, and then you're apologizing for something you did authentically in love. So if you can actually peel apart that process and the layers with someone, tell me about what happened in this particular instance, then you can start to point off along the way where that person acted in full authenticity, kindness, and love. And when you can start to do that over the course of several instances, over a course of a lifetime, then you can start to give the survivor the tools to say, this is not me. This is not me. And that's hard, because when you're on the receiving end of abuse and you blame yourself, and most importantly, he's telling you you're at fault, it's really hard in the defending of yourself to make the next step of, no, I didn't. I was authentic. Because you're so busy defending yourself against insanity, you forget the underlying, how it originated, which was in love. I look at my trajectory and I look at, it's interesting, I don't take anything off my Facebook for several reasons. I hide it, but that history is always there running in the background. Because first of all, someday maybe I could use it as evidence. His evil was extensive, and it lasted darn near 2 decades before me. So if there's anything that I can keep that could be used as evidence in the future as more knowledge about him becomes available, I want to have it there. What it also does is it gives me a timeline. It gives me a diary in essence. And I look at Facebook and these notifications pop up of, hey, welcome back to Facebook, Carolyn, because when the abuse would get so bad, I'd feel like such a fraud, and I would get off Facebook, and I'd get off for months. And then, of course, that starts to cycle over, because then he starts taking me on trips and, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. I'm sorry, sweet pea. I'm so sorry. You're better. I don't deserve you. You're better to me than anyone's been in my life. And then I feel fine again in the relationship, and I'm back on Facebook, and I'm being my authentic self until it returns to the downward cycle again. And that's hard. It's hard to look at that over 8 years and think, wow, 4 times a year, I was feeling so low and so sad that I wanted to disappear. And the flip side of that is you can live in that, or you can say, wow, I escaped. I'm still, dealing with the fallout of what he initiated. But I haven't been off Facebook and since I got back on 4.5 years ago. There hasn't been anyone in my life that made me feel so horrible about myself that I had to disappear and get small so no one could see me, because I didn't even want to see myself. And so there's a beauty in that. And I think it's important to point out those moments of beauty. When you do the work, when you stand up tall, when you speak your truth, then you can rise afterwards into a bigger and better version of yourself, and a version that doesn't live with the pit in the stomach of sadness, doesn't live in the fear of the person who claims to love you coming home, doesn't live in the fear that I'm going to say the wrong thing and he's going to shove me up against a table and spit in my face. So you don't have that fear anymore. And when you can call that out to people, then you can help them realize they can keep going and create a better life that isn't lived in that fashion.
That's amazing, and it's so true what you're saying. Now, for women like this, because we're going to put the links and how they can get the support, and also for this what you're doing exactly. And what I want to ask is that what is next for you? What's coming up for you now?
Thank you for asking that. The biggest thing coming up is that we are relaunching our website. We had a website because we call it a chorus of voices at Safe in Harm's Way, which is what, as I've mentioned about my dad, what he provided for me. It's your leadership and the voices you're giving. I mean, this is a perfect tie-in. So our website is going to be relaunching within the next 4 weeks, and it's a safe space for survivors to share their stories without judgment and without fear, because we want to be able to give people a voice. Once you start talking about it, you will be amazed, people always are, of who all else has been through it. And so we needed to create a safe space for people to be able to do that, because Safe in Harm's Way grew pretty quickly. And this new website will allow us to bring all the resources in one place, and it will allow us also to have the ability for survivors to share their story in ways that are not judged and are not edited and aren't told, well, gosh, we'd like to share that, but that's pretty gruesome. Yeah, abuse is pretty gruesome. Sorry that I can't tie it up in a pretty little bow for you and deliver it on something that's palatable to you. Sorry about that. And in fact, maybe you need to open your eyes to what is occurring in households across the country, because that is the difference maker in building empathy and community that allows other people to say, yeah, I'm going to take your hand. I'm going to help you through this. So our next big thing is the website relaunch, and then to continue on with our training platforms.
Wow, that's amazing, and it is needed, and it is gruesome, and it's the truth, what is happening out there, and it's everywhere, in schools, every place that it happens. Now, we need to actually shout it, and we need to actually open this space for people to actually know what is happening to other people, and to give that back to the victim and actually supporting them. Now, also I wanted to say it again, even though Caroline did say it. My dears, for the people who are families, when you say enough for the person, the victim, you're actually taking away their support system. So please try and think for yourself, but also think for them and help them and support them during their troubles, but also after that happens, and for you to actually be there for them, and that is actually needed. Now, Caroline, you are doing this in different countries. You're doing this with different companies. Now, what exactly, okay, I know you've gone through this yourself, but what was that vision for you that he told you that this is my life purpose now? This is what I'm going to do now in my life for the rest of my life. What was that came to you?
This story always it kind of gets me, to be honest. I was very new to having escaped, and I went, to give a visual, I went from a home that was 6,000 square feet, massive home that I created, to living out of my car, to living on my daughter's couch, to living with friends and family on their couches, constantly moving because I was so afraid he was going to find me, and he was looking for me everywhere. And I would change clothes in the storage unit of where all my belongings were stored. I would change clothes and put on makeup in the hotel lobby restrooms because they are the cleanest bathrooms you'll find. And I was getting dressed in those and doing my makeup on those in the morning. So this was my life, and I was scared. And I never imagined that I would, I couldn't, I actually had to write my name on a Post-it note because, you know, when you're dealing with abuse and you're going to doctors and you're going to lawyers and you're going to the police and you have to fill out all these forms, there were times I could not remember my name because I had been so dismantled. And what I discovered about his secret life and his agenda that he brought into our home that I had zero idea about had destroyed me. And so I was new in my process of this, and I was going back to get a second restraining order because it didn't stop coming after me. And I was sitting in, for my second time, I was sitting in this office, and I was sitting across from a woman, and all she could say, and she just kept saying it over and over, is, "He threw hot coffee in my face." And I'm sitting across from here, and she's not talking to me. She's just saying it out loud to herself. "He threw hot coffee in my face." And then she looked at me and she said, and she held up her clipboard and she said, "I don't know how to fill out this form." And I thought, oh my gosh, we are each other. Here she is, her first time here, exactly what I looked like. And while I was 6 months out, I didn't have my feet yet, wasn't running. I was like a slow limp, like I had sprained my ankle, and I could walk, but I really wasn't doing it very well in healing after abuse. And I panicked. It's as if I could smell her fear. And I was so new still in my own fear that I just took everything out of my wallet and I gave it to her. All the resources I had, and I gave it to her. And I left. I hightailed it out of that office because I was suddenly, my ears were on fire when I have anxiety and panic attacks. My ears are on fire. My neck I was breaking out in blotches. And I just gave her everything and I left. And I got to my car and I was just sobbing. And I thought, I should have sat next to her. I should have held her hand. I should have said, "Can I hold your hand? Can I help you fill out this form? What's your name? Where do you live?" But I was so afraid myself that I ran. And I thought, never again. Never again will I run from someone, ever. And that's one of the hallmarks that's Safe in Harm's Way, and that's why we end everything that we put on content is, "Come take my hand and let's go change the world." Because I gave her resources, but I didn't take her hand. I didn't take her hand. I was too scared myself. And that's when it started. I thought, I will never, ever, ever do that again. And I will, from here on out, start documenting everything I'm going through. I will write whatever I can about my journey. I will write about what I'm feeling. I will write what it's like to discover that someone you loved is filled with such disease and disgust that he negatively impacted you and the lives of your children. I will write about that. I will tell people my story in the confidence, in the patience, and in the truth of what happened, so that they can live their story and know that it's possible. You know, my kids ask me often, does it bother you when people talk about how fortunate you are and what great life you're living because they don't know what you crawled through? And I said, no, I want people to know what great life I'm living, because I want other people who are sitting there thinking, he threw hot coffee in my face, to know that if you take someone's hand, you can change the world. And I'm not saying it's easy. I am saying, though, that there are plenty of people who are willing to take your hand and change it. And that's why I want people to be able to know that, first of all, not every day is gravy. I mean, I'm sitting with you on Friday morning and I'm flashing back teary-eyed to something that happened 4.5 years ago. It's not always easy, but it can be done. And the beauty of getting to do it, and the beauty of getting to be alive to do it, is that you do have air in your lungs and the ability to create a life that you're worthy of, that is free from abuse. So that evolution and documenting that is actually what started Safe in Harm's Way. Talking to people and having them help me is what started with Safe in Harm's Way. People investing in me, doubling down on loving me is what started Safe in Harm's Way. And, you know, finding love after, finding community after is all part of the equation. When you have those tools of people, confidence, patience, and the truth to guide you through the process as you escape.
Exactly. Wow, that's amazing. And it's had to be done for you to see and to find you.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, you've claimed yourself that day, but also what you've done, you also face the demons,
yes,
of yourself, because you saw what happened to that woman and you actually reflect on yourself, and that opened up something bigger, something amazing. And this movement that you're doing, oh my goodness, is beautiful and it's needed. I do believe that it is needed a lot and everywhere in the world. My darling, keep doing what you're doing. And yes, we need to shout it. I'm doing that. And I hope any person who's watching today or any other day to share this video and to actually get the word out there, because a lot of women, men, LGBTQ, all of them, every person in this world might be waiting for this video to come out. So thank you so much, Caroline. And also, tell us, have you written a book yet?
That's a great. Okay, so I have a series of 3 books coming out. There's one book that I'm doing a compilation with this fabulous woman named Elisa Devine, and Elisa is doing. We're working together with a group of people on a project that will come out sooner than anything else. And then what we're going to do at Safe in Harm's Way is we will follow one survivor from the very beginning of whatever she deems as the beginning of her journey through the time frame of when she's still healing but thriving. And we're anticipating that kind of evolution of storytelling online will take about 2.5, 3 years for each survivor. Then that story will come off our platform and we will put it into book form. So we will have an Intentionally Fearless is the title of the books. Kind of like, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Chicken Soup for the Soul, and they had all these little motivational books that targeted teens, moms, but Intentionally Fearless will be a series of books about each survivor's story. So we're working on that. And then I have, I had several dear friends that said, if everybody knew your story till its for the fullest extent. And I always say, if you needed to learn my story, it would take 3 days and it would take several 7-course meals to lay everything out for you. If people knew the severity of what you and your children lived through, they wouldn't they would be shocked and disgusted, and it'd be hard to comprehend. If people also knew the beauty and the tiny little miracles and the people who stepped up in the plate to help you along the way, that is so beautiful and incredible and wonderful that it's hard to imagine that happened either. So it's going to be two sides of the equation. It's going to be both the beauty and the horror, so that people have the ability to see the whole thing. And the final book that I'm working on for that particular series is the evolution of Safe in Harm's Way itself, as far as the title is The End is Just the Beginning, so that so folks can see, hey, after you've done everything, this is the next that came. So I'm partnering. Final book is I'm partnering with a gentleman who's Tom is an amazing gentleman, and he's a therapist, and he works within HR, and he works with people. So he and I are creating a book about how to give authentic praise when you're working with your employees and you're developing them. How do you give authentic praise so that they can realize their value, and it's not hollow, empty. It's actually praise that they can act on in order to even better themselves. So got a lot of books in the works that are evolving, and I'm super excited about the projects.
Oh, wow, that's amazing, and I can't wait to bring you back and talk about your books. That's going to be fantastic. And also, you should actually have like 3 days, kind of like a 3 main course, and telling about your story.
You know what? That's a great idea. We could do it virtually. We could do,
Yes.
we could have you as a guest. We could bring in other guests telling their stories, and everybody sit around, and we could even send a meal to people that everybody could share together. And here's course 1, 2, 3 through 7. And
Exactly.
yeah, and hash it all out around the table. I think the best problems get solved around the table with food and friends.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Okay?
Exactly.
Yes, this is the way. But it's really fantastic to have you here today, and it's just amazing to hear your story, but also what you do in life, and that I love. And I would love this. I would love to share, and I would love to ask you, would you be willing to come back again?
Oh my goodness, yes. And I can't wait for you to come on our show and talk about your journey, because you are amazing, and what you've done and your evolution just since our connection. And I look at what you do, and I am so humbled by your process and your willingness to share. And I love that. We have the chorus of voices at Safe in Harm's Way, and I look forward to the day when you take over our content and share yours, and through your story, change and positively impact the world. We'll take hands and we'll go change.
I love that, and I can't wait. And I would also want to ask you, our last question is that if you have a message to the world, and this is your last message, this is the message that is going to hang on to someone's life today, what would that message be?
That message is because you never know. And that is because you never know extends from across a variety of things. Because you never know allows people who aren't in abusive situations to share content so that they can positively impact someone who organically needs it. Because you never know allows people to start to build the framework around a man who can be in a suit and have a high-level job and be living a secret, evil life underneath all of that compromises not only the people he loves, but compromises his workplace. And people would never know. And that starts to allow there to be discussions about believing survivors when they speak, protecting your assets as a company so that you don't keep in employ someone who systematically intends to destroy other people. Because you never know allows other women to raise their voice and say, this happened to me, because they're going to find out that it happened to other people. And in so doing, when you finally speak, you heal yourself. So because you never know is the reason that people should be listened to. Survivors should be believed. Corporations should have policies in place against domestic violence and should have equal policies in place that supports and nourishes and keeps those people living through abuse gainfully employed. Because you never know means that there can be someone in a suit that also looks to traffic others into sex. Because you never know, that frames the kind of dialogue that can happen and that can bring about change. Because you have to invest in people when you don't know their stories and it hasn't been brought to you before. So that kind of framework of because you never know allows the conversations on multiple fronts to happen in authentic and real ways.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Caroline. And I will put your details on our site as well on the platform and everything. And I just want to say thank you, and I hope to see you soon. And for everybody else out there, I would like to say for all of you to hear her for the last time before we close for today. Just Caroline Hammond, here she is, what an amazing speaker, and what a fantastic interview that you gave us today. If you got anything to say for the last bit, please share with us.
Well, thank you for having me today. I appreciate your investment in me and your time. I appreciate that we can, across countries, we can exchange ideas and we can help the broader world, because as we positively impact people and they go on to positively impact people, all of a sudden we've created this ever expanding web of goodness. And it's your belief in me that gives me the courage to stand up today. And so as you do that in your work and the lives that you touch, I'm so honored by you and your passion for changing the world. And I appreciate your commitment to having me on today. So thank you. Thank you very much. Until next time, my friend, thank you so much. Have a blessed day and enjoy your weekend. And thank you again for your time today.
You too. And take care. And for everybody else, have a lovely afternoon or evening or morning. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.